This is CNN Breaking News.
Good evening, I'm Abby Phillip in New York. Let's get right to what America is talking about. An explosive proposal. Tonight, it appears President Donald Trump is willing to use American soldiers as an occupying force in Gaza. His plan, according to the few concrete details that he spelled out this evening while standing next to Israel's hardline prime minister, hinges on the U.S. seizing the Gaza Strip. Yeah, you heard that right. And permanently relocating 2 million Palestinians who live there.
The only reason the Palestinians want to go back to Gaza is they have no alternative. It's right now a demolition site. They can live out their lives in peace and harmony instead of having to go back and do it again. The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site, and get rid of the destroyed buildings.
Donald Trump, in case you forgot, is the same politician who promised to put America first, the candidate who called the invasion of Iraq a dumb war, the man who once wondered on social media why the U.S. would waste its money rebuilding Afghanistan, the president who is okay with abandoning an American ally, Ukraine, in its war of survival. Tonight, he is something a bit different.
You are talking tonight about the United States taking over a sovereign territory. What authority would allow you to do that? Are you talking about a permanent occupation there? Redevelopment?
I do see a long-term ownership position, and I see it bringing great stability to that part of the Middle East and maybe the entire Middle East. And everybody I've spoken to, this was not a decision made lightly. Everybody I've spoken to loves the idea of the United States owning that piece of land, developing and creating thousands of jobs with something that will be magnificent in a really magnificent area that nobody would know. If the United States can help to bring stability and peace in the Middle East, we'll do that.
Now, critics call that the expelling of Palestinians from their homes, ethnic cleansing. Trump calls it a fresh start to remake the Strip into a Middle East Monaco of sorts. All that was missing was renderings for a Trump hotel in Gaza.
We have an opportunity to do something that could be phenomenal. And I don't want to be cute, I don't want to be a wise guy, but the Riviera of the Middle East, this could be something that could be so this could be so magnificent.
Joining us at the table tonight, Scott Jennings, Bakari Sellers, also with us, Josh Rogan, Rula Jibril, and Brad Palumbo. Gretchen Carlson will be with us in just a minute, but this is extraordinary, to put it lightly. And I was saying to you all as we were waiting for those sound bites to go through, Trump was reading from a piece of paper when he talked about acquiring the Gaza Strip. Rula, like, what is this all about?
I mean, clearly there's now, it's an official foreign policy of the United States, the illegal occupation of a sovereign land, ethnic cleansing, which constitute on both counts, crimes against humanity. I mean, maybe Donald Trump doesn't remember, but July this year, the International Court of Justice actually talked about Gaza and issued an order. And in the order says that Gaza is still occupied, that occupation is illegal, that Israel needs to end the occupation both of the West Bank and in Gaza. By the way, the other piece, he said he will decide on the West Bank next week, which means we don't know next week if he will allow Israel to annex it or not. I mean, in 30 years, I've been covering foreign policy. I never seen a incoherent, lunatic proposal, a proposition as such. He just put a target on every serviceman back tonight because the region is on fire already, and he's setting the whole region further on fire.
This feels, honestly, Josh, like the effective end of any hope that there will be a two-state solution. I mean, this feels like the end of it. For him to say that at the podium, it's not off the cuff, it's planned, it's part of a foreign policy strategy of this administration.
Right, I agree with everything you said, and I think to have the President of the United States advocating for ethnic cleansing is horrendous and unprecedented and deserves its own hearing. It also, to me, reveals a deep ignorance of the situation in the Middle East on the part of the President of the United States, because the plan that he articulated doesn't match any reality in the region. It has no chance of actually happening because none of the Arab states are going to take 2 million people, and they're not going to leave anyway, and there's no mechanism to actually get them out if they wanted to leave, which they don't. And so the whole idea is based in a fundamental misunderstanding of what's going on in the region. So we've sacrificed our moral authority as a nation for nothing, for no tangible benefit, and undermined the ceasefire and the peace deal that Trump says that he wants, undermining his own policy in the process. So it's really a triple lose, lose, lose scenario where Trump has undermined his own policy, he's undermined American standing in the world, and he's tossed 2 million people into the abyss of an ethnic cleansing plan that we should all vocally stand against.
One of the things that disturbed me the most today is last night we were having this conversation about the Congresswoman misspoke about $50 million spent on condoms in Gaza, not understanding that it was actually the Gaza province of Mozambique, right? We're talking about something totally different. Today we're talking about condos in Gaza, and it's amazing how the chaos that comes with this Trump administration shifts one day to the next. My biggest concern with actually listening to this today was that he's talking about going in and rebuilding Gaza. He's talking about taking control of Gaza, but we still have dozens of hostages in Gaza who have not been brought home. We're talking about Israeli hostages who have not been brought home. He's setting fire to the region, as one of you all stated. And not only is he doing that, but he's going at it alone. Because, Abby, the fact is, Jordan doesn't want this. Egypt doesn't want this. You know who else hasn't asked? Saudi Arabia and Israel. Israel is not saying that they want this.
Well,
I
think that's probably up for debate.
Well, let me also be extremely clear. I'm not a Bibi Netanyahu fan. However, this is not a position. The United States annexing Gaza is not a position that's held by the Israeli government. I mean, that's a fact. So if you're going into this region where you don't have the support of Saudi Arabia, you don't have the support of Jordan, you don't have the support of Egypt, and you don't have the support of, regardless, then it seems as if this is misguided. And the last thing I'll say politically, these people, the American public voted to bring troops home. And you have this individual talking about Greenland, Panama, Canada, and now Gaza. That seems counterintuitive to the base.
Oh, and I know what he's talking about with the West Bank thing, by the way. You want the answer to that? I know exactly what he's going to do. So they've been debating internally, according to my sources, recognizing as the United States of America, the renaming of the West Bank to Judea and Samaria. There's a bill about that.
Annexation.
That's what they're talking about. It's not exactly annexation.
You know what? Let me
just erasing the name of the West Bank.
Let me go ahead and play this, because this is the man that Trump has chosen as the ambassador to Israel. And everything that we're talking about here was telegraphed by him this is in 2008 and in 2017. Listen to this.
Basically, I mean, there really is no such thing as, and I have to be careful in saying this because people will really get upset, there's really no such thing as a Palestinian. There's not.
My feelings personally, and I'm speaking only as a person, I think Israel would only be acting on the property it already owns. I think Israel has title deed to Judea and Samaria. There are certain words I refuse to use. There is no such thing as a West Bank. It's Judea and Samaria. There's no such thing as a settlement. They're communities, they're neighborhoods, they're cities. There's no such thing as an occupation.
This is illegal.
I didn't mean
this
to
is
interrupt.
illegal. This is what he just said. That is a violation of every international law. It's a violation of every convention that the United States, by the way, was part of. It's a violation of
human decency,
but also every UN resolution. It's a violation of International Court of Justice and International Criminal Court resolutions. What they are saying tonight to the world and to the international community, international law is dead.
Scott, dead. Is international law dead? Because I think Rula is right in suggesting that that's basically what Trump is suggesting. Forcibly removing Palestinians from their land is against international law.
I think we're being a little dramatic, and we're on our jump to conclusions, Matt, here a little bit. He muses occasionally.
Taking him at his word.
He muses occasionally.
And just to be clear,
it's
because you're suggesting that we are making this up or
no, I'm not suggesting anything.
It.
No, you're putting words in my mouth.
Well,
I'm saying you and I both know he muses occasionally, and he's aspirational, and he says provocative things
Scott,
occasionally.
I really don't want to interrupt you, but I just for my own, I think I have to come to my own defense here in saying Donald Trump, with his own words, said this is what he wants to do. He wasn't musing. He was looking down at a piece of paper. I've been in a room with him, just like that, with foreign leaders, looking down at a piece of paper. He is reading a statement that was prepared for him. Those are not musings.
Well, also, Scott, what happened to America first?
So I
this
think
is the guy who was supposed to take us out of the endless wars, said he's against nation building. He railed against I know.
Playing the role of Catherine tonight.
I do want Scott.
Are you for the ethnic cleansing or against it?
Look, I don't know
not for it?
I don't
You're
know
not
that I
against
agree
it?
with the terminology you're
Go
using.
ahead, Scott.
Here's what I think. It's provocative. It's an interesting conversation point. Donald Trump, he's the only person in the world speaking positively about this particular geography right now. And I will just say that
That's called
in the first term, he did something rather audacious with the Abraham Accords, highly successful. He's always thought positively and aspirationally about the Middle East. And I would just ask all of you all who are enraged about this, how's it going right now? How's the current management doing?
Not
really all that well.
To answer you, and thanks
Terrible.
that's because of Americans' weapons and American inability to enforce.
You're blaming us for the management problems in Gaza? Come on.
Wasn't doing a great job before.
Okay, let's be honest. We have a 58-year-old occupation that is illegal, that decimated people's hopes and lives, and I am the only Palestinian here. And I must say that it honestly, the fact that we are not able to put in perspective that's the history of that region. Before October 7th, hundreds of people were killed. After October 7th, still thousands and thousands of people are getting killed.
And what happened on that day?
For 58 years.
What happened on that day?
You know what? What happened on that day, actually, Secret Service of Israel had been predicted what happened on that day. What happened on that day is we had basically, a border that was, breached because we have a government in Israel, and as I am an Israeli-Palestinian government, we had a government in Israel that favored annexation and pogroms in the West Bank.
I'm just asking you
Not
what
only
happened that day.
I want to tell you something. We had a government, we had the prime minister who said Hamas is an asset. We need to finance Hamas. He's the one that sent to Doha the head of the Secret Service 3 weeks before October 7th to ask the Qataris to finance Hamas.
But you don't want to say what happened. You don't want to say what happened that day.
It's an atrocity that happened that day.
Yeah,
But
and
that
from where did it emanate?
That atrocity doesn't justify the atrocities and the war crimes and the genocidal campaign that happened after.
I totally reject everything you just said about genocide, war crimes.
But the International
Israel has every
Criminal
right to
Court
defend
does
itself.
not.
I don't want us to get.
Not by committing war crimes.
I don't want us to get off course because I think that it is easy to redirect this conversation about October 7th when what we're talking about right now is what happens today and tomorrow and what comes next. And I want to ask you just a follow-up to what you said. Hold on. A follow-up to what you said. Trump is talking positively about the region, but in his view of Gaza, the Palestinians do not exist. How is that something that is positive for Palestinians, 2 million people that live there right now?
Yeah, I mean, he didn't give a lot of details about how he envisions the future for that population, and I certainly am not in a position to flesh it out either, because I don't know what he means by that. Here's what I do know. Current management failing, a president of the United States who's speaking positively about what could be happening in that region, and you all talk about the Middle East being on fire, and nobody seems to want to acknowledge on whose watch it was set ablaze. And so, I think sometimes he tosses things out, and it's to start a conversation and we'll see where it goes.
Displacing millions of people.
Sending U.S. troops
I think it's also
to the Gaza
necessary,
Strip
and I said this earlier, but the fact that we still have hostages, the fact that we still have hostages that aren't brought back yet, the fact that that seems to be somewhat of an overlooked portion of this
we have a deal, not a great one, but a deal.
Not only that, I'm interested to see, and there are people smarter than me about this, but what effect does this have on any ceasefire deal? What effect does it?
There's no ceasefire.
He suggested that it might actually affect it, and he.
So that's my point. I mean, if there are people who have, the innocent men, women, and children of Palestinian babies and innocent women and children in their heart and minds at the forefront, then they want a ceasefire. We want a ceasefire. If there are individuals who want the hostages brought home, then they want a ceasefire so those hostages can be brought home. Today makes no sense in actually moving that ball down the field.
And what about the what about the American families who don't want their loved ones who serve in our service to go fight another war overseas in the Middle East that he has no clear vision for? But he talked about U.S. boots on the ground. That's a slap in the face to MAGA voters who specifically rejected the old neoconservative ideology.
But not only that,
he sounds like Liz Cheney.
But not only that,
this is exactly what Russia and China have been saying. It's all about the land. And basically, nobody watched what the Chinese said tonight. They said, we know exactly what they want, the Americans. Gaza, outside the Gaza shores, they discovered oil and gas. So it's not only
this isn't a new concept. I mean, in March.
One second. It's about colonialism. Donald Trump today, he proposed a new vision for America, and it's colonialism. And he's been proposing this for other areas, Panama and other places. But tonight he went further. He said, Palestinians, we will send them, left and right, whatever. And Palestinians, by the way, the millions of Palestinians, they have families in the West Bank. They have families in Jerusalem. I have families in Gaza, and my family lives both in Haifa, in Jaffa, and in the West Bank. We can move them there. Why not allow the women and children to move actually to where they have relatives? Why not allow the orphans? There's 38,000 orphans in Gaza. We have orphanage that are empty in Jerusalem, in the West Bank, in Ramallah, in Jenin, and elsewhere. But you see that the vision is actually bypassing the Palestinians and ethnically cleansing them.
I reject one portion of your statement, which is to say that there was a new vision of colonialism for the United States of America. That I think that's as old as the United States of America. That's not necessarily a new vision.
I think the point that she's making is right.
No,
Trump is doing right now that is about grabbing land. Yeah. There's no question about it.
No question. But this isn't a new
concept.
Buying Greenland versus invading Gaza is two very different things.
Ethnic cleansing versus anything else is different. But colonialism is not something that's new to the United States.
It's not new.
And that's my only point. But also, can we just point out the fact that Donald Trump is probably the most honest broker we've had in American politics in recent history. Because nothing that he's saying, nothing that he's doing is not something that he didn't tell us he was going to do. Why are people surprised by this? Jared Kushner in March of last year literally said that Gaza would do what? Make great beachfront property.
All right, let me play it real quick, and then let me play that just so that he's not making it up.
Thank God I won one.
In Gaza's waterfront property, it could be very valuable to if people would focus on kind of building up livelihoods. You think about all the money that's gone into this tunnel network and into all the munitions. If that would have gone into education or innovation, what could have been done? And so I think that it's a little bit of an unfortunate situation there. But I think from Israel's perspective, I would do my best to move the people out and then clean it up.
We're going to have to hit pause. We will be right back with more on this conversation. Rula, Jabril, thank you very much for joining us and bringing that perspective. Everyone else, don't go anywhere. Lots more ahead. Coming up next, more on this explosive development, including whether it threatens the fragile hostage deal. Plus, more breaking news tonight. We are getting word that the Trump administration has offered buyouts to all members of the CIA. What this means for American security.